The air conditioning in the conference room was humming. That specific rattling death rattle that usually means a compressor is about to blow its brains out. I should know. I negotiated the AC maintenance contract for this building back when Logan was still eating paste in kindergarten. But right now, the only thing louder than the dying AC was the sound of my own patience evaporating. Logan, 24 years old, MBA that probably still smelled like the laminate it was printed on. He was wearing a suit that was too tight in the ankles and too loose in the shoulders, looking like a shaved alpaca that had been dressed by a blind Tor. He sat at the head of the mahogany table, mahogany I sourced from a sustainable supplier in 2014, by the way, and tapped his manicured fingers on a stack of files. My files. So Richard, he said. The way he said my name tasted like he was spitting out a stale almond. We're pivoting. Pivoting, I repeated. My voice was flat, desert flat. Nevada highway at 3 a.m. flat. I didn't smoke, but in moments like this, I felt like my lungs were lined with 20 years of unfiltered Marlboro ash just from breathing in the toxicity of this room. Exactly. Logan beamed, his teeth blindingly, aggressively white. They looked like chiclets cemented into a shark's jaw. Board feels that operations manager is a very legacy title. It gives off 2005 energy. We're moving towards a holistic workspace experience model. We need fresh eyes, digital natives, people who understand that a building isn't just walls. It's a vibe. I stared at him. I've managed 3 million square feet of commercial real estate in the hottest commercial district in Nevada for 11 years. I've handled floods, fires, EA raids on tenants, and a CEO who tried to expense a stripper pole as structural support. I know every easement, every utility line, and every zoning loophole within a 50-mile radius. And this kid, whose resume probably listed proficient in TikTok as a hard skill, was telling me about vibes. Logan, I said, leaning back. The leather chair creaked. I managed the physical reality of this company, the lease you're sitting on. I renegotiated the writer 6 months ago to save us 40 grand a year on property tax. That's not a vibe, that's math. He waved a hand dismissively like he was swatting away a fly. And that's great, Richard. Really super thankful for your service, but we're bringing in a new team. My team, we're rebranding the entire park, the Nexus. It's going to be huge. And frankly, your contract, it doesn't fit the new aesthetic. The silence that followed was heavy, was the kind of silence that usually precedes a car crash or a lawsuit. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized he wasn't joking. This wasn't a negotiation. This was an execution. By the way, if you're enjoying watching a man with a mortgage get executed by a human fidget spinner, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Maybe like the post, too. It fuels the rage engine. And trust me, we're going to need a lot of fuel where we're going. Anyway, back to the slaughter. You're firing me. I stated we're sunsetting your role, he corrected, flashing that smarmy grin again. Effective immediately. HR has already processed the paperwork. Severance as well, per the standard clause, 2 weeks. We need your badge and your laptop. Now 2 weeks. 11 years of keeping this glass and steel monstrosity from collapsing under the weight of its own ego. And I get 2 weeks of pay and a kick in the teeth. My blood turned to slush. Wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was a cold, sharp clarity. It felt like swallowing an ice cube whole. Fine, I said. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the picture of lukewarm cucumber water at his head. Even though the physics of the trajectory played out beautifully in my mind, I just stood up. Great. Love the attitude. Logan chirped, mistaking my shock for compliance. He spun his laptop around. Brand new MacBook Pro that he clearly didn't know how to use properly. I'll just need you to sign this NDA on the tablet outside. Oh, and Richard, make sure you clear your personal stuff out of the office by noon. We have the painters coming in at 1, going for Arctic gray on the walls. I walked out of the conference room, my boots clicking on the polished concrete floor like gunshots. My office was down the hall. It was a corner unit, not big. It had a view of the desert mountains and the parking lot. The parking lot I designed, the parking lot where the CEO, Mr. Caldwell, parked his obscene Ferrari every morning. I grabbed a cardboard box from the supply closet. I started packing my stapler, my framed certification from the Institute of Real Estate Management, a dried-out succulent that had survived longer than most of the marriages in this building. I could hear Logan in the hallway, laughing with one of his new hires. A girl named Chloe who looked like she was 12 and dressed like she was going to Coachella. Yeah, the old guard is out. Logan was saying, his voice carrying like a foghorn of stupidity. She didn't even fight it. Total rollover. We're going to gut the admin permissions this afternoon. Reset everything to my biometrics. I paused. This afternoon I looked at my computer screen. They hadn't locked me out yet. Rookie mistake. The commercial real estate game. You cut the digital throat before you cut the physical one. You lock the account while the person is still in the meeting. But Logan was too busy high-fiving himself to follow protocol. I sat down, my hands weren't shaking. They were steady as rock. I opened the shared drive. There it was, the master operations folder, the folder I built, the folder that contained the digital skeleton of the entire company. Logan had left his own session active on the shared server. I could see his icon hovering over a folder labeled rebranding assets. He wasn't paying attention to the back end. He was looking at logos. I didn't delete anything. That would be amateur hour. That would get me sued. No, I did something much simpler. I went into the user permission settings for the sublease agreements, the deeply buried, boring PDF files that dictated who legally owned the rights to use the land beneath the buildings. I saw my name listed as primary administrator. I saw Logan's name listed as read only. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a coyote spotting a limp rabbit. I dragged a specific set of files. Files titled Easement Addendums 2018 to 2024 and Land Use Authorization Shell Corp onto my personal cloud drive. I opened the system logs and turned off the notification sound for external export. "Hey, Richard," Logan yelled from the doorway, making me jump. He was leaning against the frame holding a green juice. "Chop chop noon is approaching." "Just deleting my personal emails, Logan," I said, my voice sweet as poisoned honey. "Wouldn't want you to see my cat pictures, whatever." He rolled his eyes. "Just go." I grabbed my box. I walked past him. I smelled his cologne, something that smelled like musk and desperation. "Good luck with the rebranding, Logan," I said, stepping into the elevator. "I hear Arctic Gray is very unforgiving if you don't prep the primer correctly." "We'll be fine," he sneered. "We're disruptors." The elevator doors closed, cutting off his face. I stood alone in the metal box, descending to the lobby. The weight of the box in my arms felt heavy, but inside my chest, a fuse had been lit. Thought they were disrupting the industry. Honey, they just disrupted the wrong man. They thought they fired an employee. They didn't realize they just declared war on the landlord. The Nevada sun hit me like a physical blow the second the automatic door slid open. It was 108 degrees in the shade, the kind of dry heat that desiccates you before you even know you're sweating. Usually I hate it. Today it felt appropriate. The world was burning. Why shouldn't the air match? I walked to my car, a 2016 Ford Explorer that had seen better days. Practical, reliable, invisible, just like me. I tossed the box of my office life into the passenger seat. The stapler rattled against the ceramic pot of the dead succulent. It sounded like bones in a bag. I sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. The leather was burning hot, searing my palms. I didn't let go. I needed the pain. I needed to focus. 11 years. I had missed my nephew's baptism for a zoning hearing for this company. I had worked through a bout of pneumonia because the fire inspector was coming, and I was the only one who knew where the updated sprinkler schematics were. I had given them my blood, sweat, and weekends, and they replaced me with a kid who probably thought escrow was a type of salad dressing. I started the car and drove. I didn't go to a bar. I didn't go to my brother's house to cry. I went home. My house is a small stucco box on the edge of Caldwell, right where the suburbs give way to the scrub brush and dirt. It's quiet, it's organized, it's my fortress. I walked inside, kicked off my boots, and poured myself a glass of lukewarm tap water. I didn't deserve ice, not yet. I went straight to the spare bedroom. Most people use their spare room for guests or Peloton bikes they never use. I used mine for storage, not just any storage. I have a habit. Call it paranoia. Call it professionalism. Call it the result of working in an industry where a handshake means nothing without a notary stamp. I keep copies, hard copies. Every major contract I ever negotiated, every addendum I signed, every city permit application, I printed a duplicate for my personal archives. It started years ago when a previous boss tried to blame me for missing permit. I produced the copy with a signature on it and he shut up. Since then, I've been a hoarder of bureaucracy. I pulled a heavy plastic bin from the bottom shelf. It was labeled Master Lease, Land Use 2012 Present. Dust motes danced in the sliver of sunlight cutting through the blinds. I sat on the floor, ignoring the ache in my knees. I flipped past the utility contracts, past the janitorial service agreements. I was looking for the bedrock. Business Park, where the company headquarters sat, wasn't owned by the company. That's a common misconception. Companies rarely own their land. It ties up capital. No. The land was owned by a holding company, a shell entity created by the original founders back in the 90s. The company I just got fired from, Apex Dynamics, formerly Caldwell Realty really before the first brand, leased the land from that shell entity. I found it, a thick document bound with a rusted metal clip. Master Ground Lease Agreement. I flipped to the back. My eyes scanned the legal that most people gloss over, the boilerplate. To me, boilerplate is poetry. It's where the knives are hidden. I remembered a conversation from 5 years ago. The old CEO, Mr. Caldwell's father, a man who was a tyrant, but at least a competent one, had been worried about a hostile takeover. Wanted to make sure the land couldn't be sold out from under him. So we drafted a very specific, very unusual clause regarding lease renewal and authorized liaison. I found Clause 14B. Renewal of this master lease is contingent upon annual certification of compliance with City Zoning Ordinance 44B. Said certification must be submitted and signed by the designated operations liaison. Ran my finger down the page to the addendum filed 3 years ago. Designated operations liaison Richard Vance. I stopped. I read it again. It didn't say the current operations manager. It said Richard Vance, specifically me, named personally. Old man Caldwell had trusted me more than his own board of directors. He put my name there to ensure that if anyone tried to screw with the property, they'd have to go through me. He died 2 years ago. New CEO, his idiot son, never read the old contracts. Logan definitely hadn't read them. I checked the dates. The annual certification was due. I looked at my watch. It was October 12th. The certification was due October 15th, in 3 days. If the certification wasn't filed, the lease didn't just accrue a fee. It didn't just go into arbitration. According to Clause 14C, nuclear option clause Old Man Caldwell inserted to poison the well for potential raiders. If the certification lapsed, the lease terminated immediately and the property rights reverted to the shell entity's control. And who was the registered agent for the shell entity? A senile lawyer in Reno who forwarded all mail to. I scrambled to another box LLC correspondence. I found a letter from 6 months ago. The lawyer had retired, had transferred the administrative power of attorney for the shell company's day-to-day operations to the current site manager to save on fees. Me again. Technically, legally, and contractually, I held the keys to the castle and they had just thrown me into the moat. A laugh bubbled up in my throat. It sounded jagged like grinding gears. Logan was picking out paint colors for the walls. He was worried about the vibe. Meanwhile, entire legal foundation of his shiny new office was resting on a piece of paper that was currently sitting on my lap 3 days away from expiring. I wasn't just an employee they fired. I was the load-bearing wall they just took a sledgehammer to. I reached for my phone. I didn't call the company. I didn't call a lawyer yet. I called the one person who could confirm if my read on the zoning ordinance was still valid. City Planning. This is Shirley. Shirley, I said, leaning back against the dusty boxes, feeling the adrenaline start to replace the shock. It's Richard. Don't ask why, but I need you to pull the file on the Apex lot. I need to know who the city recognizes as the signatory for the parking structure. Richard, Shirley rasped. She sounded like she was 3 cigarettes into a 5-minute break. I thought you were prepping for that big investor thing on Friday. Oh, plans changed, Shirley, I said, staring at a spider crawling across the ceiling. We're pivoting. The Department of Building and Safety smells like floor wax and despair. Had left a file in that folder, but it wasn't the passwords. It was a PDF titled System Passwords PDF. When he opened it, it would just be a single page. A picture of Danny DeVito holding a sign that said, "You pay the troll toll." Petty? Yes. Professional? No. But I wasn't a professional anymore. I was a ghost, and ghosts are allowed to haunt people. I went to bed early that night. I slept like a baby, the kind of baby that knows a nuclear missile is scheduled to launch at 9 a.m. Friday, 8:30 a.m. I was standing in line at the Clark County Clerk's office. I was wearing my armor, a navy blue blazer, tailored slacks, and boots that could puncture a tire. I looked like the operations manager I was. I held the file, the notice of lease termination. The clerk, a man named Denise, who had seen everything from quickie divorces to murder indictments, took the papers. She stamped them. Clunk. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Filed. Oct 14, 8:59 a.m. It was official. As of the second, Apex Dynamics and its DBA, the Nexus, had no legal right to occupy the parking lot or the common grounds of 400 Highland Drive. Thank you, Denise, I said. Give him hell, Hon, she winked. I walked out to the parking lot. Jenkins was waiting in his truck. Behind him, 3 massive flatbeds from Red Rock Towing were idling, their diesel engines rumbling like hungry beasts. We green? Jenkins asked, leaning out the window. He was smoking a Marlboro Red. We're green, I said. Move to the staging area, the abandoned Kmart lot down the street. Wait for my signal. The event starts at noon. We roll at 12:15. Copy. They rolled out a convoy of vengeance. I drove to the Apex building alone. I parked across the street in the public lot of the strip mall. I had binoculars. The scene was chaotic. It set up a white tent in the middle of the parking lot. My parking lot. There were balloons. There was a DJ booth. There was a food truck selling Ardle tacos. And there, gleaming in the center of it all, was the Ferrari, red, aggressive, parked diagonally across 2 handicapped spots. Perfect. I saw Mr. Caldwell, the CEO, arriving in an Uber. He stepped out, looking sleek and oblivious in a linen suit. Logan ran up to him, gesturing wildly, pointing at the tent, the balloons, the vibe. Caldwell clapped him on the back. They were celebrating. They were high-fiving. They had no idea that the ground beneath their feet had just turned into quicksand. I checked my watch. 11:30 a.m. The press was arriving, a van from the local news station. A couple of bloggers with oversized cameras. This was exactly what Logan wanted. Media coverage, attention. Be careful what you wish for, I murmured. Opened my phone and sent a final email to the board of directors. I had drafted it last night. Subject: urgent compliance violation and asset seizure to Board of Directors, CC Legal Department. Dear board members, please be advised that due to failure to renew the master lease certification by the authorized liaison, me and failure to rectify outstanding zoning violations, lease for the property at 4400 Highland Drive has been terminated effective 8:59 a.m. today. Furthermore, unauthorized vehicles on the property are subject to immediate removal under NRS 487.038. I strongly suggest you watch the new news. Regards, Richard Vance, former operations manager, current administrator, Highland Land Holdings, LLC. I hit send. I watched the building. Takes about 15 minutes for an email to filter through the corporate server, get read by an assistant, and then panicked about. 11:48 a.m., I saw a man in a suit run out of the building, the general counsel. She was on her phone looking frantically around the parking lot. She spotted Logan. She ran over to him. She grabbed his arm. I adjusted the focus on my binoculars. I could see Logan Unktot's face. He looked confused, then annoyed. He waved her off, pointed at the cameras. He was, not now. He ignored the warning. He ignored the law. He was too focused on his moment. 12 p.m. The music started, a heavy bass thrumming through the air. Logan grabbed a microphone. Welcome everyone to the Nexus. He screamed. The crowd clapped. I picked up my radio, a walkie-talkie I'd kept from my days coordinating construction crews. Jenkins, I said, it's showtime. Bring the rain. Copy that, boss. Iller's voice crackled, rolling heavy. I put the car in drive. I pulled out of the strip mall. I drove across the street. I didn't drive to the visitor spots. I drove right up to the main gate. The security guard, a new guy, gig worker, stepped out to stop me. I held up my badge, not my employee badge, my city inspector liaison badge. Official business, I said. He stepped back, the gate opened. I rolled in. Behind me, the tow trucks turned the corner. Amber lights flashing, their air horns blasting. The music stopped. The heads turned. The wolf was in the fold. The sound of 4 heavy-duty diesel engines cuts through a chill-hop DJ set like a chainsaw through pudding. The crowd fell silent. The investors holding their plastic cups of champagne turned to look. The bloggers lowered their phones. I stepped out of my car. I slammed the door. I walked straight toward the tent. I didn't look at the crowd. I looked at the Ferrari's truck. A monstrous Peterbilt with Reed rock towing painted on the side in aggressive font pulled up right behind the Italian sports car. The air brakes hissed. PSHD, a sound that signaled the end of the party. Hey, what is this? Logan scrambled off the makeshift stage, his microphone feedbacking with a high-pitched squeal. You can't be here. This is a private event. He ran toward me. He looked sweaty and manic. Richard, he stopped, linking. What the hell are you doing? I told you to clear out. I did clear out, Logan, I said. My voice calm, projecting just enough for the news crews to hear. I cleared out my personal effects. Now I'm clearing out the unauthorized vehicles parked on private property. Private property? Mr. Caldwell, the CEO, pushed through the crowd. Richard, have you lost your mind? We own this property. Actually, Mr. Caldwell, I said, pulling the stamped document from my folder. You don't. You lease it. Or rather, you did lease it. As of 8:59 a.m., the lease was terminated due to non-compliance. You are currently trespassing on land managed by Highland Land Holdings, LLC. That's insane, Caldwell stammered. Who is the manager of this LLC? I am, I said. A camera flash went off, then another. The reporter from Channel 8 motioned for her cameraman to get closer. Logan Anderson yelled, Get security. Security can't help you, sir, I said. This is a civil enforcement action. I nodded at Jenkins. Jenkins grinned. He racked the slide on the hydraulic controls. The flatbed began to tilt. Don't you touch that car, Logan shrieked. That's a rental. The deposit was 10 grand. Then you should have parked it legally, Jenkins grunted. He grabbed the tow hook. He walked over to the Ferrari. Stop. Caldwell lunged forward. Jenkins' man who has lifted AC units onto roofs in 115 degrees heat didn't even flinch. He just looked at the CEO. Step back, sir. For your safety, he knelt down. He found the tow eyelet on the front of the Ferrari. Clank. The sound of metal hooking metal rang out. It was the sound of consequences. Lift it, I said. The winch winded. The cable tightened. The beautiful cherry-red Ferrari 488 shuddered and began to slide backward up the ramp. The crowd gasped. Someone in the back laughed. This is a nightmare, Logan shouted, grabbing his hair. You're ruining the brand launch. The brand? I looked at him. Logan, you don't have a brand. You have a logo and a lawsuit. You fired the people who actually ran this place. You stiffed the contractors who built it. And you forgot to read the contract that keeps the lights on. Ferrari was now at a 48 degrees angle. Where are you taking it? Caldwell screamed, his face turning purple. Impound Lot B, I said, checking my clipboard. It's about 20 meters out, cash only to release. And since it's Friday, they're closed until Monday morning. Monday, Logan cried. We're paying daily on that pivot, I said. The second tow truck moved in. It headed for the Artisol taco truck. Hey, the taco guy yelled. I'm just the caterer. You have a vending permit for this specific zone? I asked. Logan said he handled it. Logan lied, I said. Hook it up. The chaos was absolute. The investors were retreating to their cars. The news crew was live-streaming the entire thing. The chyron on the Channel 8 feed probably read corporate launch towed away. Logan stood there defeated, watching his vibe getting hauled away on a flatbed. Mr. Caldwell turned to his general counsel. Fix this now. Lawyer looked at the papers I had handed her. She looked at me, she looked at the CEO. I can't, she said, her voice shaking. She's right, the lease is dead. Clause 14. See, it's ironclad. Caldwell looked at me with pure hatred. You planned this. I did, I admitted. I'm an operations manager, Mr. Caldwell. Logistics is my job, and frankly, I'm very good at it. I turned and walked back to my car. Where are you going? Caldwell yelled. To lunch, I said. Here, there's a great taco place across town. Since this one is indisposed, I got in my car. I didn't look back, but I could hear the winch whining as the second truck claimed its prize. I didn't go to lunch. I went home. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, the good stuff. A bottle old man Caldwell gave me 10 years ago for Christmas. And I sat on my patio. I watched the Twitter feed on my iPad. # the Nexus fail was trending locally. Then nationally, video of the Ferrari being dragged up the ramp was everywhere. Someone had dubbed it with the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song. Logan's screaming face was already a meme. Caption, when the vibes don't pay the rent. By 2 p.m., Apex Innovation stock had dropped 14%. By 4 p.m., the board of directors issued a press release. We are aware of the logistical challenges at today's event. We are conducting an internal review. Mr. Logan Vance has been placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation. Administrative leave. Corporate speak for we're changing the locks. At 5 p.m., my phone rang. It was Mr. Caldwell. I let it go to voicemail. At 5 p.m., it rang again. The general counsel, I answered. What do you want, Susan? Richard. She sounded exhausted. We need to talk. The board is freaking out. They want to know what it will take to reinstate the lease. I took a sip of whiskey. The ice clinked against the glass. Clause 14. C is irreversible. Susan, you know that the land rights have reverted. Richard, please. We can't move the headquarters. The cost would bankrupt us. There has to be a number. There is a number. I said, name it. I don't want money. I said, well, I do. I want full severance for myself tripled. I want Jenkins paid in full plus interest, plus a retainer for the next 5 years. I want every vendor you stiff paid by Monday. Done. Consider it done. And I continued looking out at the desert sunset. I want the lease renegotiated, triple the rent, and the new contract designates a specific property management firm to handle all operations. Which firm? Mine. I said, Sanderson Logistics LLC. I just filed the papers an hour ago. There was a long silence on the other end. You want us to hire you back as a consultant? Manage the building we fired you from? No, Susan. I don't want you to hire me. I'm the landlord's agent now. You don't hire me. You pay me. And if you don't like the vibe of the new contract, you can move your furniture out to the street. I have tow trucks on standby. She sighed. A deep, defeated sigh. I'll send the paperwork over. I hung up. The sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and red. Wasn't an employee anymore. I wasn't a legacy issue. I was the one holding the keys. I thought about Logan. He was probably at a bar somewhere explaining to anyone who would listen that he was sabotaged. He'd never understand. He thought business was about branding, about logos, about noise. He didn't understand that business is about the plumbing. It's about the wires in the walls. It's about the boring, dusty contracts in the basement. If you respect the foundation, house stands. If you try to paint over the cracks, well, the house falls on you. I raised my glass to the empty desert. Pivot, I whispered. I took a drink. It burned and it tasted like victory. The Ferrari was still in the impound lot. It would stay there until Monday. I had a feeling Monday was going to be a very busy day. But for now, the AC was humming, the phone was silent, and the vibe was absolutely perfect. And that's how it all played out. Funny how life can twist itself into knots and then somehow straighten out again. Yeah.